I'm Neal Phillips, host of This Must Be the Gig. We're a weekly podcast that documents everything about the world of live music, speaking with choreographers, costume and set designers, the people who run beloved venues and festivals, and, of course, speaking with musicians about that one gig that changed their lives. Get your peek behind the curtain at consequenceofsound.net, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org, from Louisville Public Media.
Consequence Podcast Network.
And welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Big thanks to everyone who's a subscriber, checks in with us multiple times every week. I know we release brand new interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's a lot to keep up with. I appreciate it. Hopefully you're so inspired to give the series a rating, leave a review wherever you're listening from. Of course, if you're not a subscriber, please do hit that subscribe button. You can do so at iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, Podchaser, any of the places you get your favorite podcasts from. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today my guest is two-time Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Gregg Rolie. This is the guy who helped found Santana, was the vocalist on many of their first big hits, ducked out of the band in the early 70s to start what would become Journey, sticking with them right through the early 80s as they launched into superstardom. And he's had a heck of a career ever since then, not just with solo releases, but with The Storm in the early 90s and various other combos leading up to 2012 when he joined Ringo Starr for Ringo's All-Star Band. Now, as Gregg will tell us, it's because of joining up with the Beatles drummer that he kind of had to sideline a little solo record that he was working on. And now, 18 years since his last full-length album, Sonic Ranch has arrived. Gregg and I will talk about the road to this record and all of those little bits and pieces in between, and how those reunions and tours even led to inspiration for this record. He's brought back an old Journey song called Look Into the Future and given it an update. He's taken a peace and love mantra from the Ringo Starr playbook for the first single, What About Love? And he's brought a lot of his famous friends along. Neal Schon is on this record. Steve Lukather from Toto is on this record. And Gregg's son is even a co-producer of this record. We'll talk about the benefits of recording with family. So let's get into it. Talking about the record Sonic Ranch, it's Kyle Meredith with Gregg Rolie.
Hi, Kyle. This is Gregg.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm waking up.
Yeah, well, same here. It's a pleasure to wake up with you this morning. That sounded weird. That's not the right way to start this.
I promise I won't tell anyone.
Right. It is a pleasure, man. Congratulations on this record, Sonic Ranch. I have enjoyed listening to this so much.
Well, thank you very much.
We'll get the story behind this, too, because this is a brand new record. It's being billed as the first full-length album in 18 years, but it's something you've been working on for a long time. As I read, some of these songs were recorded by 2013. Is that right?
Actually, 2012, and that's when I got into Ringo's band and got busy with that, so I was only done with half of it as far as the writing of it and some of the recording. Anyway, and then I ended up doing Santana 4 after that. Ringo's band we were going out 2 times a year, and it just kind of took all the time, and I couldn't focus on it. So then we did Santana 4, same thing. I had to put it aside, and then I just did Journey Through Time with Neal Schon. And going back and learning all the songs from Journey, I almost forgot, did I write that one, and where'd that come from? I mean, it's been 40 years, so I had to go back and relearn some of this stuff. I haven't touched it in 40 years, so that took time. So when that was all done, then I could finally focus on finishing this. So here we are.
So when you've got the song setting around, I mean, a lot of times for any artist, you write a song, you record a song, and then 5 years later, you go, "Oh man, I wish I could have done this to that song right there." You know, it's always that itch to tinker with a little bit. Did you have to bring in those songs back up to speed, or were they still in the in the version we're hearing now, even when you finished them back then?
They are what they are. I don't do that. I don't go back and look at it. You could do that forever. In Santana, we used to fight over things I can't remember what the fight was about. It's like, a change or a whatever. And And at the time, it was crucial. And later on, you just go, what was that? Why were we arguing about what? And so I kind of learned that way back then. You do it, and that's it, and make it good the first time, and try to make it long-lasting.
Well, then I will have to bring up the song Look Into the Future, because that is kind of plucked from the old days. What made you want to bring that one back then?
Because I liked it. It's very simple. I co-wrote it, and I liked it, and I've always liked it, and people love it. And Journey hasn't played it in 40 years, so it's almost like a new song to a lot of those people.
No, I even went back and listened to it, just realizing it's an epic song, and I love the treatment that you've given for it. Was there anything specific that you wanted to do with the update?
Just shorten it, and that's what I did. Not so many solos, including me and Neal. Just cut them back a bit, and ended with a vocal at the end. And I played it live with my band, Gregg Rolie band, a couple of years back, and it always went over well.
Do you find that, some of the songs like that, do you find that they speak to you differently? I mean, there's probably low-hanging fruit in the title there with Look Into the Future, and now Here We Are, but do you find those meanings change for you through time?
It is, like I said, you write it for the time, and hopefully that it can pass through time well and still have meaning for a new listener. That's kind of the game for me.
I do love that version, and I'll bring up the first single too with "What About Love." I think you've talked in the press release about taking some inspiration from being in Ringo's all-star band right there, and that's his mantra right there: peace and love. I mean, here's a song that I don't know that you're singing about something that I feel like is probably all around you on these tours.
Very much so. We actually kind of jammed on this at a sound check, and we do that a lot, and he likes to just play. I love him for this, and so we fooled around with it. But then I took it home and I wrote the bass line, and I just figured, he's been. You're right. It's his mantra for 50 years, something like that. And I thought I would take it a step further and a little harder line on it. But it is the same message, and it's the only song I think I've ever written that's just under 3 minutes. The Beatles write song 2 minutes 22 seconds, and it is absolutely complete. I find that amazing. Always found that amazing about those guys. And anyway, so that's where that came from. And then I showed Ringo the video that we made about that, and he loved it because you're playing with young people. You should do that. I said, I am, and I like it because they're an inspiration to spark the fire that I used to have when I started Santana. Was always, really looking forward to writing new stuff.
Is it fair to say, well, like that theme, that mantra, that could be dropped anywhere in our history at all? But is it fair to say that it also speaks to the current divisive environment?
I can only hope so. Hey, the world's gone crazy. I mean, let's face it. There's some really nutty things going on out there that people are calling truth, and I find it to be appalling. I've lived long enough to see it, but that's not unusual. Right. It's not unusual to take a look back and see what's happened in the past. And I just wrote a song called "Then the World Changed," which is very much on that same line. You remember those dreams you used to have that everybody loved, and now the world changed. Things are different.
I'm sure I'm taking this out of context, but there's that moment right in the middle of Sonic Ranch. One song is called "Us" and one song is called "You." It's like there's that line right there.
The way that came about is the song "You" was written and done, and I was playing the piano at Sonic Ranch, is the name of the studio that I did this in El Paso, and he had this place where it was. You could see out the window, but you were sitting down in, like in a basement, but you could see out the window. And my son was walking back with another engineer with the hauling synthesizers. What are these guys up to? And they kept going back and forth and back and forth. I go into the control room, and there's 12 synthesizers sitting there. And it was my son. He goes, we thought maybe you could, do like a preamble to the song. And so I did, and wrote it right there, and it's based on the same chords as "You," but it's the opening basically the opening of the song. And we used to do that all the time. Journey was built on that stuff. Santana was built on that stuff. He said, make it, here we go. How's it sound? Sounds good. Great. That's it. That's how it happened, though.
You mentioned your son, too, and I know he's one of the co-producers of the record. Is there a benefit to working with family? Because you've probably worked with many producers over your career.
Yeah, well, it becomes very simple. He and I get along. We're like kindred spirits. I don't know how else to explain it other than, working with your offspring is awesome. And he's on the same plane as me about music, and I'm learning things from him now. He always said, he goes, well, you're the one that taught me. And I said, well, now you're teaching me. And I find it awesome. All you got to do is listen. He has great ideas, and I use them. And if they're no good, I say, I don't like that one.
Well, it's obviously made for a really great record, and I could compliment so many other songs on here. I enjoyed listening to it so much. And Gregg, thanks so much for the conversation this morning, too. Congratulations on Sonic Ranch, and I look forward to catching you in whoever you're playing with, on the next day, because it looks like it's always interesting out there for you.
Yeah, it is. All right, thank you.
All right, take care, man. Bye.
Adios.
My thanks to Gregg Rolie. The brand new solo record is called Sonic Ranch, and it's out now. And a thanks to you as well for checking out the interview. Again, if you're not a subscriber, I hope that this inspires you enough to hit that subscribe button to keep up with the series. Again, we release interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's a great way to hear from your favorite artists about what they've got going on or some of the old classics. Just head to wherever you get your podcast from, type in Kyle Meredith with. Hit that subscribe button. Of course, if you're already a subscriber and you want to give the series a rating or leave a review, that's always a huge help as well. After that, head to WFPK.org, where I do a show Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, and even more interviews. That's WFPK.org. Consequence of Sound, they've got your music and film news. You can also find me at Twitter at Kyle Meredith and Facebook/Kyle Meredith. And that does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.